Hey you all, thank you for joining us today. I'm Tamara, that's Suella. Had we known it was going to eat into our time, I promise you we would have written shorter biographies. I apologize for that. We have a lot to share with you today. And we're really excited to talk about how we can use social media to infuse a culture of knowledge management within our organizations. One thing we want to say before we get started, and that's just to acknowledge all the really super great presentations and sessions that are going on outside that door, and to thank you for attending ours today. We appreciate that. Something else we want to say is we might reference our notes. Please forgive us. We're giving a number of presentations this week, and as I get older, my wires keep crossing more and more, and we just need to reference. Plus, we have a lot of goodness we want to share with you, so we might do that. Please forgive us in advance. Suella, are we ready?
I think I'm good to go.
All right, engage. Real quick, let's give you a preview of what we're going to talk about. We're going to start with a Take 5 moment. Suella will explain to you in just a moment what that means. Then we'll very briefly discuss who we are as TechnipFMC, and then we're going to begin where we end, right? We want to infuse a culture of knowledge management within our organization. But what does that mean? What does culture mean to us? Then we're going to dive into some social tools, a bit of strategy. We'll spend a minute on marketing. And then we'll talk about the crux of our presentation. And that's some best practices and ideas for content before we pull it all together in kind of a case study using Suella's podcast as an example. Let's roll.
All right, Take 5 moments are an opportunity for us at TechnipFMC to remind our employees about our culture, and we do them at the beginning of every meeting. As you can see here, we've got internal social media guidelines. I don't think I need to read those for you, so if you want to just peruse them. I know we've got a lawyer in the audience who's probably like, no, you've got to look at these. But if you don't have social media guidelines, get some. All right, so who is TechnipFMC? We're a global oil and gas company. We have about 38,000 employees worldwide in 48 different countries. We focus on 3 main products, and those are subsea, surface, and onshore and offshore.
Yeah, being such a global company, you can imagine how important it is for us to establish some sort of knowledge-sharing system. So here we go. What is culture? Any ideas? It's a hard question, right? It's like saying, what is art? Really? It's interpretive, right? Well, thankfully, we have the father of organizational culture to guide us, Dr. Edgar Schein. He is an American management professor, and he developed a model on organizational culture that has 3 levels of visibility. Let's briefly go through them, and then we're going to give you examples on how KM is realized as a culture in our organization. At the top, you have structure and processes. This is what Dr. Schein called observable artifacts. This is what everybody sees, regardless if you're in the company or out. Things we commonly recognize as culture. These are our taglines. These are logos. These might be the platforms we use, for example. When we dive a little deeper, we go into stated values, strategy, and mission. This is how we communicate about who we are, internally and externally. But because we have to communicate, you have to be involved in what we do to get it, so it's a little less visible. This is what Dr. Schein called espoused values. The final stage is assumptions and beliefs. This is the gold nugget, right? These are the unwritten rules. You have to actually work in an organization to understand that culture. For example, if I'm thirsty and it's 8 o'clock in the morning and I see a green mermaid, I know that's Starbucks, right? But I don't know their true culture, those unwritten rules. What Dr. Schein called the basic assumptions, unless I work at Starbucks. Really quickly, let's give you some examples.
As Tammy said, the structure and processes are the most visible part of creating a culture. You can take a look at our knowledge management how it's infused in our culture. We've got here a couple of posters. We've got our logo, some stories that we share on our wiki, and some tiles that we use. And of course, we have our tagline, sharing makes us smarter.
Let's hashtag that, shall we?
Yeah.
Hashtag sharing makes us smarter. That's really important to us, right? If you're going to try and roll out a culture, you have to use it. You have to exercise it. So create a language around it. That next stage down, stated values, strategy, and mission, remember, this is the place where you had to have some involvement, right? So people that know our program, our power users, they're familiar with how we do our job as knowledge management specialists, right? They know that we have a charter. We have a product management framework that we as a KM group use to define how we implement our products and services. We have our mission statement, and we've got a little team slogan. And anyone who knows us knows that slogan. I've got your back. Sue Ella, I've got your back, girl.
You know it.
Yep. And I have two members of my team sitting right back there. We've got Adrian Villarreal and Luis Rodriguez. Dudes, thanks for being here. I know you've got my back. Now remember, this third level, you've got to work for our company to get it. You might even need to be in our group if you're not fully infused with that knowledge management culture framework. Like we said, this is the actual culture. This is your organization's attitudes, beliefs, processes, thoughts. Now, these are our people. These are all real pictures of people who work for our organization. Now, what does this equate to? At the end of the day, it equates to what we're trying to accomplish. We want people to talk about knowledge management. We want them to socialize our services, use our products, share their knowledge. What we want to do is affect that final area, level 3, the unwritten rules, and create a new habit. How do we measure it? Through engagement and adoption. Now, there are a ton of ways that you can measure engagement. There's a ton of tactics that you can use to roll out your programs. We've got a presentation on Thursday that goes through 30 of them, right? The one we're going to talk about today and dive deep into, social media.
Okay, show of hands, who in here uses social media, either Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook? All right, well, that's the majority of y'all. I don't think y'all need this session anymore.
Bye.
Let's go get lunch. All right, so no, just kidding. But at TechnipFMC, we're primarily an Office 365 house, and along with a couple other external tools. But there are so many out there. For us, it's Yammer, Teams, our learning platform, SharePoint. The Well is our internal Wikipedia. The Bridge is our community of practice. And then we use Streams as well as the video portal for Office 365. But there are hundreds, literally hundreds of platforms out there. And at the end of the day, it's really not the platform that matters, because you guys are probably using any number of these. It's actually how you use that platform that makes a difference, and that's what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely. Like Soa said, there's so many choices out there, right? So it's important to give your social presence a little bit of structure, and you do that through creating a strategy. Now, when you create a strategy, your first consideration should really be your target audience. Who do you want to use your KM processes, tools? Who do you want to enroll in your program? Well, ask yourself a few questions. What does that profile look like? Who are these people? When are they online? What kind of content appeals to them? Are they technologically advanced enough to use social media? How much training is going to be involved? Once you go through and you define your audience, then step on to metrics. You need to establish some metrics in the forefront to find out what you're good at, what's working, what's not. Ask yourself, how do I view success? How do I know when I've been there? And more importantly, how do I know when I've missed the mark? Analytics and metrics will help guide your strategy. When we rolled out our learning management system last year, we set a metric. We said we wanted 50% of our employees to log on to our new system and create a profile within the first 30 days. We hit our mark. Because of that, we knew we were on the right track. Now, unless you have a ton of resources, if you're a large organization with a large KM group, don't try and boil the ocean all at once. Pick 1, 2, maybe 3 platforms and test your social acumen. Get to know your users. Feel comfortable, get some analytics, some feedback, and then grow it from there. Another strategy might be run a pilot. Find a small subsection of your target audience and see what is their aptitude for social media. Establish that connection, some communication tactics, get your feedback. Once you are done, you should have a use case that you can carry to other areas of the organization and provide benefit.
So part of your strategy is going to include your social media calendar. If you've already got an engagement calendar, make sure that you're rolling in all of your social media onto this calendar. It's been a hot minute since I've dated, but I've got teenage girls, so they talk about a term called ghosting. And you don't want to do that with your audience. Right now, you're trying to set up a relationship with them. Make sure that you're posting on a regular basis so they see you and they know who you are and they're getting to trust you. Try to post great content. If you don't have content right now, repurpose something. You can always put it in another word or put it in another format. At the end of the day, it's the plans. I'm going to look at this so I make sure I get this right. Hashtag plans are worthless, but planning is everything. So you don't have to stick to what's on your calendar as far as what the content actually is, but just make sure you're doing it.
Absolutely. Hashtag planning is everything,
Yes.
right? Absolutely. And girl, I have the advantage. I've got the podium, so
Right.
It's not quite so obvious. Let's talk about marketing for just a minute. Now, if you've ever attended one of our sessions, you've seen this slide before. I can't help it because we have to market everything we do, right? I mean, honestly, what is a brand? A brand is a promise you make to your customers. I mean, let's be realistic. How many people in here have built something and then your employees, for some unknown reason, didn't use it? Anyone? Anyone have that failure? I have, over and over and again, right? Well, the reason is that you just can't launch something and expect people to come. You've got to communicate. You've got to educate. You have to sell your product to your customers, your employees. So just very briefly, let's take this model in marketing. This is Marketing 101. It's called the 4 Ps. And you can see them there in the parentheses, product, place, price, and promotion. Now, if we take our KM programs and we overlay it on that simple model, what you get for a product is your KM program. It's your tools. It's your initiatives that you're rolling out. Distribution channels are our place. This is how we make our tools available to our employees. Well, price is our value proposition, right? This is where we easily demonstrate the value of knowledge management versus the investment that our employees have to make in it. And then a promotion is just that, promotion. It's how we make our employees aware, right? Now, in the vein of this conversation, you can use social media to promote your initiatives, absolutely. But I think the area that is most affected is place. Don't you agree? Because we're providing another distribution channel to connect you to your customers and your customers to you and your product.
Ready?
Okay, let's shift gears. This is the fun part. This is when we go through some examples so that we can demonstrate some best practices and content ideas. Isabella?
All right, so this is an example of another KM tool that we use. It's called Experts Explain, and it's a webinar series where we can connect experts in either internal experts or external experts to our engineers and other communities that might have an interest in whatever it is the topic is. I don't know if you guys know the Jet Propulsion Lab, CKO, David, anybody? So I see a few head shakes.
Anyone
So
know David at all?
we were fortunate enough to have him come and speak to us during one of our Experts Explain series. I think you'll agree we've got the branding, right? Experts Explain. We've got the call to action. We've kept it simple, fairly simple, and the sizzle, right? I mean, gosh, that makes you want to go see it, right? Not so much. All right, so we took a second pass at it. And now you can see we've tied in subsea to outer space. This makes it relevant for our engineers. They want to come. They've clicked on it. And actually, this was one of our most popular ones, and people did turn out for this one. And it's also, again, we can repurpose this content. Remember how we talked about that earlier? This is content because it's a video. We can pull it back up at another time. Am I missing anything on this slide?
No, I think it's great. And, this was awesome. All of our experts tuned in, discussions ensued. There was a lot of social interaction following this Experts Explain.
And just in case you're wondering what we did with this, we posted it on Yammer and throughout our COPs. That was just a tile that we used, and we use those tiles quite frequently.
Sorry, I'm jumping through it here. Let's talk about communities of practice for just a hot minute. Communities are definitely part of our social strategy. Wouldn't you agree, Luis? Luis Rodriguez is the manager of our Communities of Practice application. Our communities are defined such that they're global in nature, and they're open to everyone in the organization. And even though anybody can sign up and be a member of that community, honestly, the core membership is comprised of people who have the same experiences or operate the same processes. Now, our social structure within the communities is twofold. First of all, inside the community, we've provided a lot of social features to drive those discussions and to make them important, to optimize the learning. So things like, and probably the most important, is that you can take one discussion inside of one community, and you can share it with a number of other communities, and then retain all of those responses in the same discussion thread to maximize the learning. And as Louise likes to say, get a bigger brain on the topic, right? You can also invite people in to comment in the discussion. You can pin a discussion. We have ratings on them, so you can rate how beneficial they were. The second component is that these communities are a social network in and of themselves. They are comprised of some of our strongest supporters and users of our KM program. I mean, surely they are. They wouldn't be a member of the communities if they weren't, right? So we milk them, we use them. They are a distribution channel for us. A couple of years ago, we had a vice president. He was the vice president of HSE and quality. HSE stands for Health, Safety, and Environment, 3 huge topics in oil and gas. And he posted a very simple question. How do we simplify engineering? It sounds pretty innocent. But it was not. And the reason is, well, first of all, it was really simple, right? And it was relevant because he asked that question of our engineers, one of our strongest target audiences. And it was slightly controversial. I mean, honestly, everybody had an opinion. They were engineers. That's what they do, right? And it didn't hurt that we had a vice president, one of our leaders, post that discussion. It gave it a bit of credibility, if you will. And we all knew that he was going to action an idea. So it compelled people to respond to that discussion. Other ways that you can get people to take action in a discussion within a community. Have an enticing headline. A while back, we had a subject line that was, let me get it right, my dumb injury, learning from experience. What does that mean? We had a number of clicks on that, if you will, kind of went viral as we define it in our program. Other best practices, respond quickly. Respond within 24 hours if you can. Somebody's needing help, could be halfway around the world. You could be resolving a problem that could save your company tons of money. Don't let people email you. If you have a leadership team on your communities of practice, tell them not to accept emails. If people want answers from them, ask them to post it in the discussions. And finally, welcome all content. This is one of the topics that we talk about quite often when we benchmark. If somebody's going to post something incorrect, we let the community police itself. They do that better than we do, right? They're not going to allow an inaccuracy to go unchecked. Rather, they correct the inaccuracy publicly. And by doing so, we share it with everyone. That's much better than hiding it in an email.
So another content type is imagery. As a writer, this kills me to say, but you can say it with me. A picture's worth. Right. So, yeah, like I said, as a writer, I hate that comment, but it's definitely true, and we use pictures a lot. This is not one of our pictures, but I could see us using this. What's wrong with this picture? Again, maybe for my dumb injury. And then posting this in one of our COPs or in Yammer, just so that people can start fielding questions or fielding, throwing out answers. Maybe we can use it as a contest to get people to respond, and then also to log into maybe a quality event or a safety event. We like that idea. But other considerations that you might want to use when doing photography, it's eye contact, smiling pictures, pictures of smiling people. Those make a difference. People want to see people. They don't want to see objects. For example, in our world, we'd much rather show a picture of someone on a vessel than maybe, let's say, a hanging tube or something like that. So, yeah, just make sure that you're following the guidelines for optimal sizes, and make sure that it's a simple picture, one that's explanatory, because there's nothing worse than looking at a picture and thinking, hashtag, what the heck is this?
Let's go from pictures to video. This is another social channel that you just gotta milk, right? 75% of employees nowadays would rather view a video rather than to read content that's in a document or an email or an article. And YouTube reports that mobile viewership of videos is increasing by 100% year over year. Videos are powerful and they're here to stay. People are watching them. So what do? Let's roll it into our strategy. We did. I got to tell you, we officially launched to our organization on October 8th. And the first thing we did was put together a video. Now, this isn't the final draft. I have to say we're getting close. But I'd like to show it to you. It's about 2 minutes. Is that okay? Yeah? POP is our internet. It stands for the power of purple. And that's our tagline. Hashtag sharing makes us smarter. We use it a lot. Now this was really a good idea for us because we're trying to translate a pretty conceptual idea of knowledge management in a way or a media that can be easily consumed quickly and on the go, right? We're introducing knowledge management to a large part of our organization. Other ways that we can use video in our launch, well, we can ask our employees, especially our power users and the people who know our programs, to film themselves, talking about how knowledge management has benefited them. We might get a video of one of our corporate sponsors talking about the importance of knowledge management and the goodness it's going to bring to our company. Lead by example. Now, videos are so powerful. We use them to oftentimes just give instructions, demonstrations, Sometimes when we launch, like for example, we launched the new version of our wiki in Office 365 in June. And we just got on Snagit. We did a quick demo and we clicked people through little bite-sized tutorials like how do I create a wiki page. The reason why they really work in change management is because they're effective in translating emotion and showing outcomes. This little film strip here is an HSE video that walks people through a series of actions right up until a point where one of our employees has to make the right choice or the wrong choice. In our industry, oil and gas, the wrong choice can cost you your life. So this is something we have to get through to our employees. And this one is a nail biter because in the background there's this little noise. Tick, 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 until you're just like, oh my God, I'm going to explode. Please make the right choice. And it really helps us to understand that safety is our own responsibility. It's our own choice to make. Now, how do we get videos out to our employees? Well, we have Office 365, and that's super helpful to us. We have a video portal. We have Stream. In that environment, you can comment, you can like, you can share. We have Yammer. We post it in that environment. We engage our champions. We create hashtags. Again, you can like, comment, and share inside of Yammer. We store videos, so we have the integration with other tools we offer. So videos go into our wiki where we have comments turned on. People can say what's useful, what's not, or because it's a wiki, they can add to the knowledge that's been stated, right? That's the whole point. Some quick considerations. I won't go through all those best practices. One of the most important is content trumps quality. Remember that. If I have a video, it doesn't matter if I use my little iPhone to film it or not, as long as the content that I'm translating is relevant to my need. So your viewers can be very, very forgiving. Shoot in the vertical. Oftentimes people watch the videos on the go, which means they're watching on their mobile phone. What am I forgetting? Anything? Those are good ones.
I think that's it, yeah.
Yep.
All right, so we're talking about internal, so why are we pulling in external? Well, it's a good opportunity to give your KM program credibility. I'm going to be a little thrown off here because this next picture features someone that happens to be sitting in the room. So I don't know if you guys know Nancy Dixon, right there. She is a collaboration expert, and she came to our boss, who's also fairly well known in the KM world, Kim Glover, and asked if she could do a study on our virtual team and how they are a high-performing virtual team. Kim immediately said yes, and as the study got underway, Kim posted about it on LinkedIn. And why that's important is that she gave the hashtag on her LinkedIn post, it's a corporate hashtag, Team TechnipFMC, as well as several other tags. And then plus she mentioned people in the post. And internally, people saw this. For us, it was important because it happened during a time when our two companies had just, it was newly merged, and one part of the company didn't even know what KM was. So for them to see this externally, as well as we pulled it internal because we shared that link on our Yammer post, but for them to see that, they knew that our KM program must be something special if an expert like Nancy Dixon wanted to come and do a report on it. And as our boss is always telling us, external recognition gives you internal street cred.
Let's talk hashtags for just a quick minute. Everybody know what a hashtag is? Yeah, you're familiar? Okay. I'll go ahead and move on then.
If not, we've said it enough that you're probably sick of it.
See us afterwards. We'll fill you in. I'd like to think of hashtags giving a little structure in the midst of all this social chaos, right? It categorizes content, and it makes it really handy when we want to push things like our initiatives, our programs, our solutions and tools, etc. Now, we have to get serious for just a quick minute. It's been a pretty rough hurricane season for the past couple of years, and Southeast Texas, we didn't escape it. Hurricane Harvey hit us 2 years ago and did, oh, I'm getting a little verklempt. Sorry. It was tough. It was tough to get through. We got 60 inches of rain in about 4 days. It was so bad that the city of Houston, which is the fourth largest city in the United States, actually sunk by an inch because it couldn't support the 27 trillion tons of water that fell. It was a true disaster. Over 113 million people were affected in some way, somehow. Now, oil and gas, we're a tight community, and ConocoPhillips is right up the road from us. Almost immediately, their executive offices, their corporate center, it flooded. 20% of their employees lost their homes. And so what they did is they folded social media into their disaster plan. They immediately created a Yammer group called Hurricane Harvey, and they didn't just open it up to their employees, but also to their retirees. And they created 2 hashtags, hashtag need help, hashtag offer help. And these hashtags were an impromptu way and a structured means to connect employees around a single topic. That's what hashtags do. That's a pretty strong example, but that's why they're so effective. We highly recommend them. We've hashtagged our KM program. We've hashtagged our KM logo, tagline. We hashtag all the time, and we hope you hashtag this presentation. A couple of best practices to remember when using hashtags: keep them simple, keep them memorable. You want to go back and you want to click it or you want to search for it. And you can do that by keeping them short. Don't use more than 2, maybe 3 max hashtags per post that you make. You can capitalize the first letter of each word if it's long, but hopefully it's not. And probably the 2 biggest pieces of advice that we can give is really engage your champions and your influencers. Let them know you're going to use a hashtag, and they can help propagate it for you. And the other big one is research it first. You know, it's got 2 points, 2 reasons to do so. The first is that you might find your hashtag piggybacks on another one that's relevant to your content. Or you might find that it's not so relevant and you don't want to use it.
Nothing worse than using KM Angel and then finding out that that's actually an inappropriate bar. Yeah, so, sorry. All right, complaints. You know, you're living your best social life, you're getting happy hearts and thumbs up, and everything's going great, and you think you're doing wonderful, and then poof, there it is, that one curmudgeon who sticks in that negative comment, and all you want to do is just delete, delete, delete. Anybody had that experience? Yeah, well, don't do it. Don't delete. Respond immediately if you can, and because more than likely it's probably a misunderstanding. And as Tammy said earlier during our discussion post, is that it's an opportunity for you to engage the rest of the community and teach them about your KM tools. I would like to point out this is an example of one from our learning community. Someone posted across the world that they were having trouble getting into the platform, and they thought that it was because there weren't enough competent people in their area. Okay, that right there sets me off if you're calling people not competent, but I don't think that's what he meant. And our learning team jumped on board, and within like 20 minutes, there were 4 posts. Hey, can I meet with you? Hey, let's set up a Skype time. What do you need to know? Let's get some links out to you to help you get this fixed. And it was a strong support for our strong win for our learning community. I have another example. We had a guy when I was first starting the podcast who literally, I mean, we had just released the fact that we were relaunching the podcast, said, "I hate podcasts." Yeah, that kind of hurt, you know, and that wasn't real valuable for me. So I immediately called him and said, "Hey, let's do a podcast. You've got some interesting knowledge, and I think at a higher level, people would be interested to hear about what you do in the form of lifting." He did the podcast with me a couple weeks ago, and now it's like one of our most popular podcasts.
And he loves podcasts now. He bought into that real quickly. No, I talked about champions earlier. They're worth mentioning again, y'all. We have had a lot of success with them, and I'll just say that we've created a process by which to create a program, you know, how to identify them, recruit them, get them on board, and keep them. And if anybody is looking to create a community, please see us afterwards. We'd be more than willing to share that with you. Now, a group of champions, generally they're distributed throughout your organization, also distributed geographically, right? You never want your sun to set on your champions. And they're so powerful. These are people that are engaged early adopters who recognize the value of knowledge management. They can be your voice in the field. These people come from the business, and that is so critical because they know how to take your message and fold it into their flow of work. They give it context that that is almost seamless as it is identified by your target audience, right? They have the reach. They're reaching these people that you want to get to, but you're using them as your distribution channel. Now, because they're influencers and they're respected, they're going to demonstrate the behavior that you want your target audience to emulate. And so that's why champions are so effective. And it's up to us to empower them, right? Now, a lot of them are going to volunteer, but still incentivize them, right? Give them a little insight on your program and your roadmap. Create a community for them to engage with one another. I promise you, they'll get smarter than you in about 6 months.
All right, analytics. You can measure the performance of your social media through analytics. We're fortunate that Office 365 out-of-the-box analytics are pretty good. So we can tell what's working and what's not by the number of clicks, the number of likes, the number of shares, and vice versa. If they're not getting any likes or nobody's mentioning them or sharing them, what went wrong? It's a great way to be able to tell when you need to make a change and what changes you need to make.
I got to just point out a few things on this word cloud. Like I said, we launched our program on October 8th, and we hashtagged the heck out of it, I got to tell you. We got everybody involved. We told them how to use the hashtag. And you'll see right there, hashtag sharing makes us smarter. Also, look at that, hashtag KM. And this is really important when you consider the context here. Take 5 Day. This is not in my language, so I can't tell you what it stands for, but it was a big, giant convention that was down in South America. These were global events, right? These were huge, and we ranked right up there with them. So this is how we know we're doing something right. One more thing I want to show you, hashtag You Matter to Me. That was actually started by our group in honor of Mental Health Day. So we're really proud of that one. That shows us that we just intuitively know how to use the hashtag and get people to use it with us. Don't be frightened. I'm not going to go through it all, right? This slide is just to tell you that measurement is important, right? Especially when you're trying to do something like have a transformational change in culture. That's huge. When you're launching a program, this all goes back to your strategy, right? You have to define what you want to accomplish. This is going to help you keep you on that path. It also makes sure that you're reaching your target audience. Oftentimes your numbers will show that you're doing something right, but those numbers might be someone other than your target audience. This can help you when you get down to the user level. It also helps you do things like set milestones, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we use Office 365. We've said that a number of times. They have some pretty good analytics. We've also used Google Analytics. That's pretty strong. We also do manual calculations, right? I've seen Adrian and Luis back there in there just counting up people, making sure that we're getting to the target audience. But sometimes feedback isn't always in the form of a number, right? We have to remember that we're in the business of personalization. Reach out to your users. A KM survey is really, really good for that. We don't recommend doing it a lot, but maybe an annual survey so you can establish a benchmark and have year-over-year comparisons to make sure you're on track helps out a lot.
All right, so we've talked a lot about plans and strategies, but we thought we'd show you a case study. This is the Illuminate podcast. And when we are promoting the podcast, the first thing that we do is crowdsource. We send to our subscribers list. We use outside tools called Spigot. That's an ideation tool that we try to find out what type of topics, what type of guests do people want to hear from. We engage our champions and our influencers through the communities of practice, trying to find out, are we doing this right? We can do polls to see that, to measure how well or how successful we've been with the podcast. So that all sounds pretty easy, right? Yeah, not so much. So the next part is where it gets a little tricky. This is where we try to connect everything that we've just talked about, right? We're connecting our people and where they work to our platforms. We're giving them an opportunity to meet us, or we're giving ourselves an opportunity to meet them where they are working. I think that interconnectivity is what this whole presentation is all about. And then once we're done, we just get to sit back and bask in all of this great information that we put out there, and hopefully it goes viral. And that's it, we're done, right?
Suella, you have to stop telling these lies.
Because guess what? It's a weekly podcast, so we get to repeat this all again and again and again. But you can see how we use each of these platforms and each of these types of hashtags, likes, mentions, to try to build a greater audience.
This is how we're going to affect that culture. And something that you need to do, like Suella alluded to, is repeatability. You have to be consistent in your repetition. You have to consistently repeat your messaging. As you're developing your strategy, you'll learn which of these social features work for you. You'll learn which of these channels are effective in transforming that culture. It's not going to happen overnight. Remember the rule of 7? 7 times in 7 ways. Our manager, Kim Glover, says that all the time, right? And that's just to get someone to take an action, to make that first click. And a culture change, that's the first domino to fall. That's what we're after. That's how we're going to get to the assumptions and beliefs and rewrite those rules. That pretty much concludes our presentation, but we don't want to leave you without a little example of reading that we've done to help us form our strategy and this presentation. I'd also recommend Dr. Shine's culture map. That one's critical. That's going to talk to you a lot about culture. The last thing we want to say, all pictures taken? We can give you the presentation. We're here for you. So let's keep talking. Social media is still pretty experimental, right? We're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to figure out this really great channel to reach our customers in our organizations and empower and drive knowledge management. If we can create a relationship between us and you, just think how powerful we can be. Let's use social media to do that. Thank you, everyone.